Alright, next lesson here, let's take a look at network map and some load balancing methods. First up is network map, and this is an important tool here within the GUI that allows us to visualize the entire F5 as far as the virtual servers, the pools, and the nodes to let us know what the status of those are. Let's bring up the GUI here, and what we want to do is, as we minimize the tabs, under local traffic, click on the network map. Under this tool right here, we can see total amount of virtual servers, pools, pool members, nodes, if there are any iRoles, whether they're available, unavailable, offline, or unknown. Again, just depending on how or what your status and what you want your nodes or pools to be monitoring that. Let's click on the Show Map button here. This will show an entire overview of all the objects that you have under Network Map. So what we have here is we have two virtual servers, msn.com and google.com, and we don't have any pools or nodes associated to that under google.com. We have the test servers ABC pool along with 3 different nodes. So again, this is a complete visual, and you can imagine if we had 50 virtual servers in here, this would be pretty useful. I use this personally a lot in troubleshooting. System engineer or system admin might call in and say, hey, I can't get any data to google.com, and I don't know what's going on. So you come under google.com and see, hey, are all the nodes up, or do we have a problem with 1 box, 2 boxes, 3 boxes, all boxes? Is load balancing being performed? Is the pool member up and active? It just allows us a different and higher view of the load balancer as far as virtual servers, pools, and nodes. We can have many options here to search depending upon how many virtual servers you have on the device. You may not have many, so you may not necessarily need the search functions up here. Again, you can use those in search as long as however big your F5 and your load balancing become. But again, that's a very important tool I've used. Now it's something I always use as soon as someone reports trouble with the device serving pages or not load balancing correctly, issues there that we can take a look at. And again, just some things we talked about. The network map shows us status, available, unavailable, offline, unknown. It gives us multiple types of objects, virtual servers, pools, nodes, members, iRoles, and the search function. Just depending on how big your virtual servers or however many devices you have within that. So here we go to the mode instances, the types of load balancing that your servers that you can set up and based on your design. Now this is all dependent upon your design. Sometimes depending upon your application, it may work differently. It may work better using one or the other. You may have a server that has more memory than another. You may have a virtual server housed within 4 or 5 other devices on the same physical device that don't necessarily need a higher or lower amount of traffic on it. And this is all dependent upon your design. And F5 is very, very flexible when it comes to this. And again, these are all type of load balancing is all set up within the local traffic tab, the pools tab, and the members. And you can see there are many different options as far as how you want to set your configurations up as. So let's take a look at those and discuss those. So round robin is probably the most commonly used load balancing method that I have seen. I've seen some others. It just depended upon the hardware or software applications. Some of you it may take some tweaking to get the best add to your application, add to your serving your customers or your end users. So let's take a look at round robin. What it does is it just distributes connections evenly across the members. So as round robin comes in, it's going to send to the first one and the second one and the third one. As long as the ratio is the same, there's if these two are active, of course, it's going to send to these two. If this one's down, it's going to skip that one. It's going to send to these two and distribute those. Ratio distributes those connections. The ratio static load balance message distributes connections based on your defined ratio. Again, this is different or flexible based on the capabilities of your box, of your server, of your physical or virtual box. It's completely dependent upon you. You may look up requirements or do investigation as to what load this box can take, what's the stress level. You may do tweaking in the production environment with a, let's try ratio. Let's see what the user experience is when we set this box at a higher ratio level than another box. Again, so and ratio and round robin are categorized under static load balancing. We have another type of load balancing called dynamic. And again, this is all based on F5's terminology. This is what they have it set up as. The other load balancing manufacturers do have similar naming conventions or similar types. It's just all dependent on your environment. So we look at dynamic load balancing, least connections. So F5 will distribute your traffic based on the amount of current connections are within the F5 and the device. So again, the benefits of this is telnet FTP sessions if connections are up for longer periods of time. So let's look at that. We set it to least connections. What it's going to do again is distribute based on the amount of connections into that device. So it's going to come in, hit your VIP, FTP session is going to establish with 1.1. Another connection is going to come in, it's going to establish with 1.2, then 1.3, then it's going to go 1.1, and let's say another session comes in 1.1, it's going to say, okay, where am I going to go next? Where's the best place I should send this? It's going to say 1.2. And 1.3 is free. Alright, let's send this to 1.3. So again, it's similar to round robin, but it's reading based off of a connection limit inbound or to the box. So again, it's just dependent upon your setup and what you want it to and how you want it to function for your end users. So again, some other couple more. As you can see, there are a number of load balancing methods, and this still falls under dynamic. Fastest distributes members that has the fewest request. So 10.1 doesn't have anything coming into it. It'll distribute and pick that as the best bet to go to. So again, it's useful for devices that differ in response time. So again, performance based. What is your system reacting at? Again, this may take weeks of graphing, weeks of inbound connection limits, monitoring those sessions, and again, it's tweaking. If all your systems are the same, that's great. Makes it easier. Again, this allows it to be flexible with your systems. Least connections, another load balancing methods distribute based on new connections based on current sessions associated with that. Weighted least connections distributes based on a connection limit. So again, if a connection limit is set, we have weighted least connections. Predictive, still under the dynamic load balancing, similar to observed. We did not cover that. So again, assigns more aggressive ratio value for less than average connections. dynamic ratio, load balancing, real networks or real systems platforms. Again, this is application specific, so F5, maybe they have a high number of end users that work with real networks or real system platforms, so they throw in a load balancing methodology to best handle that traffic with real networks or real system platforms. So again, going back, we do have static and dynamic load balancing, most common round robin and ratio. I've also seen some dynamic load balancing with least connections and fastest. Those are the most common I have seen. But again, round robin takes the crown out of all of them. Again, it's entirely dependent on your environment, your systems, your research. Again, if you're a system admin network engineer, you want to do the research. You do not want to buy a product or release a product out there that is going to be served to thousands of customers and not have any clue of how you would want to distribute that as far as load balancing. And that will conclude this session.